Welcome back to another episode of Anatomy of a Rumor, a podcast about B2B marketing and demand generation. This podcast is meant to help young marketers and even seasoned veterans in the field of marketing working inside B2B SaaS space to further sharpen their skills and gain the knowledge and insights from industry experts on how to adapt to the ever-changing field of demand gen and marketing. Enjoy this episode. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Anatomy of a Rumor. My name is Shabahat Ali, and today I have a very special guest for you. The guest I have is Mr. Brent Annells, who is a powerhouse in marketing, a vast amount of experience in B2B tech marketing, startups, agencies, big agency, you name it, right? Welcome to the show, Brent.
Thanks for having me, Ali. Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for your time. I was about to do the intro myself, but then I thought maybe I won't be able to do justice to it. So why don't I leave it to you?
Right. Okay. I love doing my own intros. So my name's Brent. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Smart Token Labs. We make tokens smart. I've been doing marketing, as you said, since it's going to really date me here, but since 1989 was my first job in public relations. Mm-hmm. So 30 plus years. I've worked across 11 different startups, worked in Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, worked in both the agencies, big agencies like DDB, global ad agencies. I worked at big startups like Facebook and Uber. Facebook, I looked after brand. Uber, I looked after partnerships. I worked at a lot of smaller startups, and I now find myself in Web 3 with Smart Token Labs. So a lot of B2B, a lot of B2C, a lot of brand, a lot of partnerships, a lot of intersection with sales and marketing and partnerships and growth.
So pretty much seen everything in the world of marketing and business, pretty much, right?
I've seen a few things, yeah.
So, Brent, that's an interesting statement there. So, the most of your time of your career was spent in Web 1, Web 2, and what made you make the shift towards Web 3?
Just opportunity, really. Someone came knocking and I've been looking at the crypto space for a couple of years. I was working in a fintech at this time, really interesting fintech. I first started looking at crypto like when I was at Uber, just coming out of Uber in 2017, and I really got that idea that, a new way of building that business would involve the drivers who played a really fundamental role in creating value in that business, owning a greater share in it, crypto seemed to be like a pathway to doing that. So that's when I first started sort of getting an interest in crypto, Web3, tokenization, and I didn't really follow up on it until last year when I got approached about a gig in Web3 as a CMO gig in Web3, and I started to sort of explore the space a little bit more, and that sort of, so it was someone contacted me. I'd already had a bit of an interest, and then I sort of got down the rabbit hole a little bit.
Oh, okay. So were you investing in crypto before that, or did you just jump into? No, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting in a way, right? So I'm not like, I don't classify myself as an incentivized believer. I don't hold any tokens. I don't have any assets. I'm invested in the company I'm in, but I'm kind of like a clean skin like that.
There goes my final question, which was at the end of this episode. What bags are you holding?
Don't gamble. Don't gamble. That's my view.
Interesting. So, Brent, Smart Token Labs, tell us a little bit about the solution. What are you guys exactly working on?
Yeah, so we're an open source software development company, been building in the space for 4 years. Two main projects: Alpha Wallet, which is a fully open source mobile NFT wallet, loved by Ethereum developers, been forked over 700 times. Really great mobile NFT wallet. And TokenScript, which is like our big long throw. It's effectively a new type of HTML. So it's based on a programmable smart token interface where the token is effectively, where our view of the world is that, it's Web3 is not the destination in and of itself. It's going to be the coming together of Web 2 and Web 3. And the new digital primitives that are kind of analogous to like what websites were in Web 1 or mobile apps were in Web 2, the token inside the wallet is going to be the new sort of, two digital primitives that come together that completely transform how we experience, the internet. And we're building effectively like a new type of HTML around a token that sort of like will be a bridge between Web 2 and Web 3. So that's what we're doing.
Interesting. So that's a good overview of it. So essentially you're not building a token yourself, you're building a framework around the existing tokens. And then when you say they're going to bridge them from Web 2 to Web 3, what does that mean?
Well, so in its simplest form today, what an example of that is token gating. So there's a few token gating solutions that have come onto market. We've got one that comes out of this token script framework. Ours is called Brand Connector. And token gating lets a token, an NFT or a coin, act as like a key to unlock something on a website. So with our solution, right, you can visit any website. If it's got Brand Connector, a token gating solution installed in it, the Brand Connector can recognize that you've got a wallet and recognize that you've got an NFT, and then customize offers, rewards, or content experiences based on the NFT in your wallet. So that is it's a very simple bridge between a token and Web 2. The token unlocks experiences. So that's like the sort of first wave of what we're starting to see, how people are starting to add utility to tokens is through token gating. And then with token script, we're going to take it to a next level with what we call token bridging, where basically the token itself will start to take on the functionality, the logic, and the rights that exist at the website level and wrap around the token so that someone can take, like what they're entitled to through a CRM or loyalty program. The rights can be embedded and wrapped around the token, and then someone who holds that token can then go and bridge into the metaverse, bridge into other brands, bridge into third-party services, and carry their ownership rights and their membership rights and entitlements into third parties, and then you'll start to see the full promise of the open internet.
Very nice. So in layman terms, what I'm understanding is that it's going to turn a token into your very own Web3 ID, and you can show that ID in different places in Web3 to get access.
Yeah, I mean, you're right on the money. Like you said before, we're an infrastructure. It's exactly like that. Another way I sometimes frame it is it's like a reverse cookie. So the token is going to become like, cookies got dropped on us. We didn't really have any control over it. It's almost like a really user-centric reverse cookie where the person who holds the token, right, the token will express what we own, what we've got, what we're entitled to, what our preferences are, what our rights are, how we want to interact, what we want to share, and we'll be moving around the internet conveying that to all these things that we want to interact with.
Very, very interesting. So so you basically get all your data into that single token. Very nice, very nice. So I'm gonna quickly pivot from Web3 because we're going deep into Web3. I don't want to do that. I want to first go into Web 2.0. Sure. From your experience, you mentioned you worked for some big names like Facebook and Uber. And all of them, though very established businesses, very established categories today, when they started were category creators. And they were something that people were not really looking into. And you were also, have I got you with me?
Sorry, we got interrupted there. There was a bit of a lag on the connection. But what I took your question to be, it was about Facebook and Uber as category disruptors.
Yeah, and so and you worked in startups as well. So the question basically was around the fact that category creation. In your experience, what have you seen are the success factors, or what are the primary drivers for success when you're trying to create a category?
Terrific question. So, the management consultants always talk to you about what problem you're solving. Right? And there is a simplicity and a truth in that. So, when you can remove pain points for people, right, then that can often be a way in. And the big disruptors do that really well. So Uber is kind of obvious in that regard. It's you're solving for all the friction that exists around trying to catch taxis. And they don't turn up on time, that sort of thing. But I think probably the other way that I like to look about it is product and simplicity. And the common denominator that I've seen in all the startups I've been involved in is they have this just incredibly elegant solution that does something simple incredibly well. And basically the brand emerges out of a collection of product experiences that just keep on delivering again and again and again. So if you go all the way back to the earliest form of Facebook, it was basically just that you could upload pictures that your friends could see, and then you could connect to them. And you had this new way of sort of connecting people. Instagram was just filters on pics, and it was just an amazing way of doing that. WhatsApp is just secure messaging,
Correct.
And in the end, Uber's just like you get a car on demand in 2 to 3 minutes every time when you press a button. And that to me is where I see everything go wrong, and where I see products fail is complexity and lack of focus and complicated stories, or a vision that sounds really experienced, right? Or a narrative that sounds amazing, right? But narrative is not product.
Exactly.
Product has to be simple and intuitive and almost one click. Otherwise, you're never going to survive.
Absolutely. So what I'm deriving from that answer is that you actually have to build a product around a burning pain. Pretty much simple as that, and that's the successful category creation. And the reason I ask this question is because I see so much noise, particularly in LinkedIn, around category creation and having a story. Everyone's trying to create a category with a story. No one's trying to innovate on the product. And
yeah. Look, it's a similar observation I have, and a little bit of a bugbear, I guess. There's this whole thing, and it's come out of web. It's pretty prevalent in Web3, right? Around the idea of these NFTs and community. Community is moat, right? And the whole thing is based on a story that people can attach to. I just don't buy it.
Exactly.
Because stories are complicated.
Yeah.
And it's fine to anchor yourself in a truth and try and build a narrative based out of a truth, right? But if the truth is not built in the product experience, then you got nowhere to go. And so that's the problem with this sort of first wave of trying to define what marketing is in Web3, where everybody says community is moat, brands are based on stories. Look what Nike does. We're going to tell a story like that. Well, it's actually based on 20 years of amazing product experience first.
Correct.
So if you don't have that first, then, and it's distorted in Web3 because of that idea of incentivized belief, right? Everybody who holds an ape believes the story is what drove the brand because the token price went up. Well, it's just an aberration because you could trade JPEGs, I mean, that's not what it is, but you had a tradable asset that people had stimulus checks and everybody went nuts gambling on them, right? So that's why. And certain ones just went through the roof, and it wasn't really. We're going to see a whole new wave of it that's not about that.
Exactly. And I think the problem with that, Brent, I don't know, I could be wrong, is that when con men become marketers, I think story becomes more important than the product.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, Web 1 was really similar, right? Web 1 and the .com boom was super similar, totally analogous. It was just. I mean, I remember sitting in a boardroom with my dad, who was a really experienced tourism executive, and me and my mates had this idea for this disruptive tourism play. I can't even remember what it was, but trying to explain to him why the .com, basically a brochureware website, was going to disrupt the entire tourism industry, and he just didn't buy it, And we just said, well, you just don't get it because you're too old, But turns out he was right. There needed to be more to it.
Amazing. So we've talked about category creation, and we've established that a product is in fact more important than the narrative when it comes to category creation. But there's a challenge when you're creating a category, that there is no existing demand in the market for that, at least not on a conscious level. That may be on a subconscious level. It's not at a conscious level. And marketing or a new business for a lot of time succeeds initially on capturing the existing demand. And when that demand is not there in category creation, how would you suggest people in that position to go about their initial marketing? What should be the mediums or strategies they should adopt if they're going for category creation with a new product?
So it's a $64 million problem, or question. And Andrew Chen, I think it was, who's at A16Z, and he's a former Uber guy. He wrote a book on this called The Cold Start Problem, and it's basically exactly that. Like, how do you kickstart from scratch a new solution in market when you've got limited resources, typically? And I guess there is no perfect answer to it. I think I think it's and I think it links back to the product, right? So if you don't have something simple that people can take an action and it puts a smile on their face, then you're never going to get to where you want to get to. So you can basically buy your way to your first 1,000 users if you've got a bit of cash, right, on Facebook and Google. It's pretty simple. But at some point, the acquisition cost is going to blow out, and it's going to become hard to do that. And then you're not going to create a growth loop. You know, the idea of these growth loops is effectively that you know any startup really needs effectively like a compounding growth engine. It means that for every dollar in, you're getting more than $1 back, and you can deploy the growth loops. Typically, are like organic loops, viral loops, paid media loops. And it's the idea that for every new customer you bring in, you'll get a multiplier effect back, maybe 1.5, 2 if you're really lucky. And the only way I think that ever really works is if the product delivers on something amazing. So there's lots of tactical things that you can do. So I'll give you an example. The last company I was at was called Defer It, and they're a buy now, pay later provider, and they only pay everyday essential bills. And it's a really great product. And it's got an NPS of 87, right, which is through the roof. So that means the people who use it absolutely love the product. And the typical user is, it's a mum. It's a single mum with 3 kids. And basically they're using it to balance their household budget. There's a whole interesting story around organic referral out of that product. But I'll pull it back to the very early days of Defer It. You know, those guys have got a founder story about how they set up Defer It and why. But the much more interesting story is how they bootstrapped their first 1,000 customers. And the way they did it was they went onto Instagram, and you know, these were not marketers. These guys didn't have marketing experience, but they kind of got it. So they went on Instagram, they friended 1,000 people. They set up this account and friended 1,000 people and ultimately got 1,000 followers back. And then they unfriended everybody, right? And then they rebranded the page, right? And then they announced they've got this new product which if you've got a bill like a phone bill or a car registration bill that you can't pay, we'll pay it for you up front and you can pay us back in 4. Right? That's the basic proposition, right? And that's how they got their first customer. You know, and their first customer, just this totally unknown brand that happened to have 1,000 followers. Someone said, "I'll do that," and they gave them their credit card over DM, right, to do the transaction. And within a week, they had 7 more people who'd put their hand up to do it, and within a month, they had 100 people using the platform. Right? So what does that tell me? Like, it tells me 2 or 3 things, but the 2 most important things are the product was on the money, right? People wanted the opportunity to pay back essential bills in 4 on good terms, which was the core of their offering. And secondly, as founders, like, it's just like quintessential growth hacking stuff and elbow grease stuff. They just, you know, they didn't go and try and raise money to do this. They went and they just said, all that really did was they put a proposition in front of an audience to see if they'd respond. And to me, that's the single most important thing. There's lots of different ways you can do it, but I mean, you can ring your friends and family, you can go to extended networks, you can build a group, you can tap into communities. There's lots of ways to do it, but putting the elbow grease in and getting involved is the best way.
Brilliant. And the key that I'm taking away from that is that it has to be organic. It has to be organic initially, and then it only grows if the product delivers on what it's supposed to deliver on.
Fundamentally, that's right? Because if you don't see some sort of like indication of organic liftoff in those first 100 contacts or whatever, right? Then you're never going to win, because you'll be able to buy 1,000 customers or buy 10,000 customers. But if you don't have a growth loop at play, if they don't love the product and they're referring it or because there's some sort of network effect at play, you're never going to survive.
Absolutely. And this is something I tell my clients when we do paid media as well, right? Some clients come to us and they're like, "Oh, just chuck in 20 grand a month on this ad campaign." I'm like, have you tested the messaging first? You want to burn 20K? You don't even know if the messaging works. Let's just test out the messaging first organically. Let's see if that resonates, and then chuck in 20K on that, right?
Yeah.
So it's excellent. So we've talked about new categories. We've talked about how to go about them, but there's another side of the business, which is where a category is very saturated, which is most often the case.
Yeah.
Everything's pretty much saturated, particularly in SaaS. That's where we deal in. All the products pretty much converge onto each other. There's rarely innovation happening there. What would be your recommendation as an experienced person? How to set yourself up as a leader in a saturated category? What would be the steps?
Well, I think, at that point, you can really, the only real way to differentiate is either on price or on understanding your customer, right? And so, and probably the best way to do it is on understanding your customer. So, it comes back to pretty traditional stuff like customer conversations, interviews, research, getting into market, like truly understanding your buyer. And with SaaS, what comes with that is segmentation. So that often, people go, I'm either after enterprise, mid-market, or small, right? And within those buckets, there's so much segmentation within that.
Correct.
Right? So then when you bring it down to small business, for example, or a small business, there's 2 million small businesses basically in Australia every year, and 20% of them go into 20% of them are going out of business every year, and 20% new come in every year. They're incredibly fragmented. So whether you're after small accountants or dental shops or childcare centres or tradies, within that the segmentation is super discrete. So if you're going to win with SaaS, you have to understand childcare centre operators, or you have to understand mid-market accountants, or you have to understand single office home operator accountants. So I think you can. It comes back to your point around messaging and testing, right? You just have to be ruthless about which segment, and it's a big bet, right? Focus is a big bet. Because you're going to either go out of business on trying to cater to everybody and converting none, or you're going to go after a discrete audiences and really bet the farm on winning with them. But my experience is you've got more chance of winning with going discrete, understanding them, spending time with them, customizing your messaging, making your features pop, making them believe that you've really got a solution for them. Right? It's the only way you're going to win if you're in a cluttered category where all the solutions are the same, because you can't win on features and benefits and rational selling points, because it just all sounds the same.
Exactly.
So you've got to win on some sort of emotional level of connecting with the buyer, and the only way you can do that is really truly understand them.
Exactly, and I believe that gives room to some sort of innovation as well, because when you become hyper focused on a very small subsegment of a segment in the audience, you tend to understand them so well that you can actually build a product around those very specific pain points, and that in itself is an innovation, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just like Slack for developers, like they get developers, they built the whole business out of talking their language and customizing with them. The product never changed. It moved into Slack for marketing and Slack for community and Slack for every other type of audience. But they just got developers.
Absolutely, brilliant. So let's now start to move into Web3 again. The question is written as growth strategies for Web3 startups, right? But fundamentally, what I'm trying to ask here is, we know the tactics that go around in Web 2.0 or in traditional tech businesses. What are the tactical things that are happening in Web 3.0? Because I know for a fact that Facebook or typical social media digital advertising is not the best option to go about it. It's more so focused on communities and more organic influencer plays and stuff like that. So what are you seeing? What are the tactics for people building in Web 3.0?
Look, it's a good question. It's very broad, and I guess it depends a little bit on which part you're segmenting. But if you look at the NFT sort of DAO space, right, and that, I mean, that's where community is super important. And so if you've got a drop, then you need to build a community, and you need to build from ground up, and you need to get them involved in the idea of what it is that you're building. And obviously, more and more, they're moving to NFT or DAOs that have utility and cause at the heart of them. So, but in that world, basically, how do you build a community from scratch? And it's going to come back again. So I think there are any community you can possibly imagine today exists on Reddit, for example, right? There is a subreddit for any community you can possibly envisage. If you're in cause-related or environment-based or, some sort of, bespoke art form, you'll find it on Reddit. You'll probably find it in a Facebook group. You'll probably find it in a marketplace environment. So, basically what people are doing in Web3, and again, it's hard to disconnect because it is connected to this idea of incentivized belief. Basically, you are going to have a token that's going to be tradable on market and is going to have a value. And so any project in Web3 that's playing in that sort of space is basically juggling these two things. Contributors to the project that truly believe in the project and the idea, and they want to help co-create it and build it, and then basically flippers, who are just going to come in and go, when token, and when can we get more, and how do we get hold of it early, and so that we can flip it. And you're constantly trying to balance those things. So, I guess the standouts for me come back to this idea of product. Product is slightly less defined in that world, but the idea of utility or benefit or roadmap, the closer that gets to the real world, the more likely your project is going to succeed, and the way that you mobilize this community around the idea and the story and that sort of thing.
Interesting. So organic growth with communities, again, it's executing on the fundamentals, right? Yeah, building a community around that and then incentivizing people to use that product. Interesting. But there's a thing that comes out of this, Brent, when we talk about this. We talk about communities, and even not just in Web 3.0, even Web 2.0, right? There's a lot of talk about building a community around your business, right? These days, even Web 2.0 project. But the challenge that arrives out of it is attribution, right? Attribution already is a very touchy subject where you can't really pinpoint on what's happening. But when you get into communities, when you get into stuff like building Reddit communities, Slack communities, WhatsApp, whatever, a lot of your business is coming from that, but it's not trackable. What are you gonna? So in a Web 3.0 or in a community-centric marketing style, how do you solve these attribution challenges, or how do you look at these at least?
Well, I guess in Web3, the part of the promise is that they're going to be, these communities are going to hold stakes in your project. They're going to be contributors to the project, and they'll contribute by holding the token, but they'll contribute by helping building the solution as well. So it is a paradigm shift in that regard. It won't change, in my view, the view that the reality that it's just a couple of percent. Most people don't want to be a community, don't want to be perceived as being part of your community.
Correct.
They're not interested in being perceived as part of the Starbucks community or the Nike community or the or the Polygon community, or the Bored Apes community. Now it starts to. So that's a universal truth. It's a small percentage of people that truly get involved and truly believe and really feel good about it. So, and those people power a disproportionate, percentage of sort of like organic growth that you will achieve through referral, through word of mouth, through impact. That stuff's always, forever and a day, it's going to be like supremely difficult to measure. But you will, I think, with Web3 and with tokenization and you'll be able to see, and people participating through platforms like Discord, you will be able to see them contributing more and how they bring other members in and that sort of thing. I think we're just super early in what it all means and what it's going to ultimately look like. But the attribution thing probably won't change that you're describing.
So I want to take this attribution back to Web 2.0. It's not just in Web 3.0. I mean, even Web 2 is moving with iPhone, iOS updates, and more and more talks about privacy of data and stuff like that. Attribution is becoming challenged, and the web from an attribution standpoint is becoming darker. What are your suggestions on to marketers for that, who are like, especially after digital marketing? I think marketers have gotten spoiled. If we can't measure it, we don't want to do it.
Yeah, well, so okay, like it's a really interesting space. So my view on it is that 70 to 80% of your growth will come from two channels, right? Two primary channels. It'll either be paid, it'll be SEO, it will be referrals, it will be inside sales, and the number one thing, this is Peter Thiel's, power law of distribution, that two channels will represent 80% of where all your growth comes from, right? And 90% of businesses won't get one channel to work well. So again, it sort of comes back to focus, right? And you can't measure everything, right? So you basically have to make a bet on what channel is going to drive your business over the coming sort of 6, 12, 18 months. And you have to stick with it, because the mistake I see everybody making is they do 10, right? And they're just utterly confused about which ones work. So you've just got to bet. You've got to bet big and embrace the uncertainty of you've just got to follow your customer flow, understand how your growth engine actually works, and then make the bets on the big ones. And then the other thing is like what big bets really mean. I remember listening once to the global CMO for Procter & Gamble. She was speaking at a Facebook conference, and she was talking about big bets. And she managed like a multi-billion-dollar global advertising budget across hundreds of countries and thousands of sub-brands. And her view was that iterative test and learn was a complete waste of time. The idea of taking 10% of the campaign budget and iterating around this or that or the other, right, was completely pointless, because all you ever got back was noise. So she said, what I look for in my marketing plans that come through, the quarterly and annual plans that come through from all these different areas of the business, is I look for big bets where they're going to allocate 30 or 40% of the budget to a test. And her view was that basically, she was speaking at a Facebook conference, so I'm a big believer in Facebook and Instagram. However, I believe that pretty much any channel can be made to work. I think you can make radio work, right? But to make it work, you have to put 30 to 40% of the spend into that channel over a period of 6 or 12 months to truly work out how to make it work. And she said, and they're the big bets that I look for from my teams that want to prove something new. Because what you'll know, you may fail, right? You may not get radio to move the needle enough, but you will categorically know at the end of that period whether or not you can. She said, but what I see is just everybody like filtering away their dollars on all these, iterative stuff. And that's what I've seen a lot of, right? I've seen a lot of, over the last 10 years, a lot of MBAs and quant people coming into marketing with no experience in marketing, and they are convinced they're going to, find their way to the answer that no one's ever been able to unpack in marketing, which is what works, right? Through data, right? And they just end up doing everything and learning nothing, just like everybody else has the last 40 years. So big bets, focus, go hard on a small number of things. That's my guidance.
Yeah, and what I'm getting from this is that being focused just on the numbers inside a spreadsheet is not going to work. You gotta go with the feeling and the qualitative data that's at hand, right?
Total mix, yeah, 100%. You'll never know. You'll never completely know.
Exactly, absolutely. I mean, a perfect example of this is like we generate a lot of MQLs, right? And at the end of the day, we had a goal of say 1,000 MQLs, and we're celebrating because we hit the mark. And sales is missing quota by 70%.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about that, right? So yeah, if you're just looking at number data, that's always a miss. That's always going to be a miss. So let's move into the next question. My next question is from your vast experience and your view on the market. What are you seeing at the moment? A common miss across startups and tech businesses right now in marketing. What is a common mistake that most of the people or most of the businesses are doing?
Let's see.
Kind of put you on the spot there, didn't I?
No, I just did a post recently on the 11 top learnings from 11 startups over the last 20 years. So I'm trying to think which one's the best answer. But there's quite a few, right? But and a lot of them come back to the same thing, right? So number one, I would say, right, Facebook and Google CAC will always go up, and you cannot game the algorithm.
Amen.
Right? Full stop. There is no cheat. There is no fix. It's always going to go up. And at some point, CAC will exceed LTV, and it's all over, right? So you cannot build a business on Facebook and Google alone, right? That's the number one that I see for most startups, right? Everybody gets wildly enthusiastic about what they see happening, and they just don't ever think the gravy train's going to end, but it does. That's number one. Number two is like that narrative is not product, right? So I see just so many companies just convince themselves with the story of what they're doing, but they don't actually have a product that can deliver on that, right? And there's this huge gap between founders with vision and story and narrative, but don't have product experience, and therefore they can't actually deliver a product that delivers on the narrative. That would be the second one. I'm going to throw in the third one. Just it's a bit controversial, but I also say that like culture is not moat. So there's just this. I personally believe that we've just gone way too far on the, for startups on the whole cultural. Everybody's heard the Facebook story, right? So at Facebook, mission drove purpose, drove values, drove culture, right? And when I joined in 2013, it was unbelievable. Like whatever view you've got of Facebook, my view of it was just an unbelievable place to work, incredibly inspiring. They had 5 values, and I could name every one of them now, right? So it was like move fast and break things, be bold, make impact, be open, be honest. They were the 5 Facebook values, right? And I could give you examples of every one of those that impacted the way that I did my work every day. And it was incredibly inspiring. And I think and then a lot of startups have followed that sort of model, right? That we're going to get, and it's sort of like it's everyone's going to be drinking the Kool-Aid, everyone's living for the mission and the purpose, and we're going to change the world. And that's great, right? When you're on a rocket ship, right?
Yeah.
And you're just that far down, right? But it's like, I see so many startups starting there, right? And it's like, dude, if you bank your life on joining a startup, you have to work your backside off. You have to live in this ambiguity. You have to run the risk that every day you're not going to get paid. You got, the vast likelihood is you're going to go out of business, right? So it feels like, so many people join there's just too much of that. Culture is everything. Right? It's like, hey mate, sorry, I keep using that phrase, but let's just build the product first, right? Let's get some traction. Let's secure a future for the company first. And then I'm not saying you shouldn't be respectful to employees. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a North Star that gets you up every day. But my experience with startups is it's just an enormous amount of hard work and uncertainty. And that's where the culture's born, right? The ones that are just going to stick it out around that, not around we're going to change the world.
That's very interesting that you talk about culture that way. I was listening to Simon Sinek on a podcast recently, and he talked about this, right? And he said that this culture problem in companies is mainly stemming not from the businesses, but from actually the employees or the Gen Z or the millennials coming into the workforce and setting wrong expectations from businesses in terms of culture. And it's more of and he was very philosophical about it, and I tend to agree with him. I don't know what you're going to take is going to be, but he said that this whole demand for a culture in a company stems out of the fact that Gen Z and millennials are struggling in their social lives. They've cut off church, they've cut off their neighbors, they've cut off their friends, they've cut off everything, and now they're expecting culture in a company to give them back all of that they're missing outside in their personal lives. And that's just an unreasonable expectation from a company to have, because we've got a business to run here. So, and it goes back to your point. You can't be focused on building the culture that way. You got to be focused on building the product, right? You got to be focused on delivering an experience.
Yeah, look, it's a super tough one. It's so I'm a big fan of Simon. Simon Sinek is the why, what, how. I remember listening to that years ago, and I've used that in businesses I've been at. I've used that why, what, how with the sales team at Facebook. I inherited a sales team. It was the worst performing sales team at Facebook. When I joined. And it wasn't the guys that were bad. It was just our vertical was just massively underperforming, right? And I couldn't turn it around. I was leading that vertical, and I was failing as well. And we went offsite and did why, what, how, to motivate ourselves about how we're going to become a better team, you know. And the interesting thing about that, right? Like our why was like, why are we at Facebook? And I said, I'll be brutally honest with all of you, right? I'm not here to be the best advertising sales rep in the world, right? I really don't care about selling ads, right? But I want to use this as a platform to become a world-class marketer that's recognised on the global stage. We're able to do innovative stuff with brands that, you know, we have this unique opportunity. So that's my why, you know. I see this as a launch pad to doing other stuff. I'll be really frank with you, right? And we all rallied around that in the end. We're like, yeah. And, you know, our what was, you know, we're going to stop selling media plans because nobody cared about the spots and dots on a plan. We couldn't sell because we were just turning up saying we've got unparalleled interest-based targeting data and the biggest reach, and everyone had heard it from us, right? They was thinking. So we stopped selling that and we started selling ideas. We wrapped our media strategies as these emotive sort of like ideas that we sold to clients. So we'd go to Canon, instead of selling a media plan to launch a new DSLR, we'd sell them sunsets, you know, and we'd sell them the idea of sunsets, right? I won't back that. And then the how was, right? We will, you know, we'll stop selling, we'll start co-creating, because we needed media agencies to get on board, right? So we would co-create these ideas with the media agency partners and with the clients, right? So it's a really radical way of reframing how a sales team operated. And our value was, we only had one value, and it was to be radically helpful. You know, no matter what we did, we're just going to be radically, everybody who dealt with us was just going to find us unbelievably helpful. We would just go, you know, and so that became, and we turned that sales team from the worst performing in Australia, second best in APAC inside 9 months. You know?
Wow. That's amazing. And when was that? What year are we talking about?
From 2013 to 2015.
Oh, so not too long ago, yeah?
Not that long.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. Wow.
I feel like I've diverted off the original point, but I do believe in that framework. And I do believe, you know, and I think that's what, you know, like that was a younger millennial based team. You know, I'm an old guy now, but you know, we got motivated around doing self-interest. Like, we want to be world-class marketers, but grind it out and do the work. That's what we do.
Exactly. Your drive has to come out from an authentic place. That's what I'm getting from this.
Yeah, totally.
Excellent. So another broad question, but and a fundamental question, but still, I mean, I haven't gotten an answer for that clearly yet. I'm going to try it with you again. Product market fit. Yeah. What is product market fit? How do you know you've got product market fit? People say when you're selling, you've got product market fit. You've got $1 million in ARR, you've got product market fit. You've got a certain award, you've got a product market fit. But is that really it?
I think it's it just depends on what stage of business you're at. I define it as momentum, right? It's that it is an intangible thing. It's like attribution, right? So it's that indefinable thing where the numbers are starting to move, the way that you're closing sales, you're starting to see some referrals, you just get that sense, right? Or it's not, you're not there yet, but you can, and it's just, you know, it's the special thing that certain founders have and certain teams have, right, to make their bets. Right, so product market fit is always changing and it's always iterative, and you're always actually trying to narrow down on where am I placing my biggest bets, where are the company makers or breakers, you know. And so it typically is a combination of data and instinct, and they come together around this sense of momentum. You know when you've been in a business and it's been tough, right, and you're running these campaigns and you've got a few different things you're trying, and you're just not quite getting, you're not winning, but you're not losing, but you just don't know where, you know, and then suddenly, you know, it's like you've got four paths in front of you, and on one part, you know, there's a bit of green here and a bit of orange there, and then a green marker, green shoot over there, and then suddenly you see green shoot, green shoot, green shoot, right? And I'm just using this all as an analogy, right? But you get to say, oh, that's opening up. Something's happening there, right? And then you start to go down, you really dig down on what's happening there. What's the mix of channels and messaging, and what are the audience, what's the feedback we're getting, what are the sales data telling us? Something's happening here. We need to focus more of our effort here, you know? And that's to me, you know, I've been in so many startups now, and you know, the bad ones, you're talking yourself to death around the theories and the ideas and what the data's saying, and you can see from 100 miles off that the data's unclear, and none of us really, we're just theorizing, right? We don't know. And then you're in the ones where you see the green shoots sort of start falling like a domino, and you go, dude, this is it. We've got it. Like in the business I'm in right now, boom, I can see that we've got it. On a certain play that we've made with a certain product, we just, it's the time to close is dropping, the meetings are getting quicker, the meetings are easier to get, we've got PR off the back of it, we've got investors are getting excited, boom, 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 boom. It's taken 10 months to get to that point, but I can see it. So I don't know if that's a good answer or a bad answer, but
I think that is clear, and like you rightly said, it's a very vague sort of term, product market fit. No one really knows, but and I think it's vague because with a lot of things, we marketers make them very really complicated when they're not. Right? Product market fit, in very simple terms, should be the fact that is the market accepting your product and wanting more of it.
Yep.
Right? So going back to your very initial point in this conversation, is your product delivering on the promise? And what are the ways to... That's how I look at product market fit, right? And I think it's very qualitative. Like, are people who are coming to you buying once, coming back for more and bringing more people with them?
100%. And exactly on that point. Is it getting easier? And is it getting easier?
Exactly.
It's just like pushing a parked car along a flat road. It's just like that. It's like as you start get rolling, but then if it starts to slow up again, right, constantly restarting it, right, it just means you don't have product market fit. If the car's continuously stopping on the road and it moves a little bit, then you got to get more people behind you and keep. But once it starts gliding and it becomes effortless, right, that combination of channels and sales material, all the things that goes with it, what I'm putting into market, what feedback I'm getting, all that stuff. It's really telling you what's happening.
Oh, absolutely. And it, like product market fit, like you said, is constantly changing because the market needs are constantly changing. The consumer behaviors are constantly changing, right? LinkedIn probably 10 years ago was just a job board pretty much. And today, if LinkedIn still acts that way, it's going to fail real quick because right now it's a B2B platform and people want that experience.
Yeah, and what is it? What is its product market fit? I couldn't tell you today, but I enjoy using it more than I ever have before.
Absolutely.
And it fills probably more roles in my life than it ever has before.
Absolutely. Brilliant.
It was a job board. It was the next lead generation tool. It now is, both those things plus, the social network for sort of like informed discourse around interesting, topics.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a springboard to opportunity, so it's constantly evolving.
Yeah, the way I look at LinkedIn today is it's a global business convention that's happening 24/7.
There you go.
It's a stage for you to perform, and you're giving speeches, there are thought leaders and whatnot.
Yeah, it's a really good way of framing it. You're absolutely right.
Exactly. So, moving towards the end now, I'm going to ask you what are the Web3 projects that you're excited about? Some of the projects that you're looking into.
Geez. So I actually wrote a note on that because I got asked that question the other day. Hey, I'll tell you. So look, my main thing on Web3 at the moment is we don't have that mass consumer application yet, right? So my view is, the experiments over on digital currency, like alternative store of value, Bitcoin's it. Like we have an alternative monetary option based on digital peer-to-peer money, right? So put that aside. In terms of like self-executing smart contracts on the blockchain, Ethereum, etc., I don't think current first wave NFT or even first and second wave DeFi are it. Neither of those are the mass consumer or business application that's going to totally make sense of blockchain, smart contracts, and tokenization in the way that Uber or Airbnb made sense of mobile apps, right? We haven't got that yet. So what I'm kind of interested in and motivated by is the more cause-related community mobilization stuff. So, tokenization, both financial incentives and governance that will mobilize people to act at scale to do things that need to be done is what is really interesting, why we're still waiting for the other piece to sort of drop, which I believe it will. And I believe when the first mass consumer, when the Uber lands, and everybody gets it, and God knows what it'll be. It might be around, textbooks. It might be around some accounting platform that everybody uses to do their taxes. I have no idea. But when it does, the floodgates will totally open, just like with mobile apps, and everyone will get it. In the interim, what I'm kind of motivated, what really catches my attention is more the community-based stuff. So ClimaDAO last year, ClimaDAO was a DeFi 2.0 experiment that basically involved, people who invested in ClimaDAO were part of pricing carbon credits out of the market. So it became too expensive to pollute. That's a simple proposition. And by buying the ClimaDAO tokens and staking them, right, you generated an investment return yourself, but you made it too expensive for big companies to buy carbon credits to offset their polluting. So you're trying to solve for climate change.
Wow.
Right. So that, I don't know where that's at, to be honest. I don't think they quite landed like where they were. But what that was trying to do, right, was mobilize. And basically we're talking about Gen Z and millennials, right? And I think this is what's going to happen. The governments can't fix it, so we will. And we'll do it from a position of wanting to solve for these big issues, but also self-interest because we can generate a return. So I'm just fascinated by that sort of stuff. I think we're going to see, there's another one called Earth Fund, and it's basically they've created a no-code suite of tools so that anybody can do like a ClimaDAO, And there's really interesting things popping up in that, in environment and mental health and that sort of stuff. So that's what I'm most interested in at the moment, Ali. Just keeping an eye on those things, because I think that's really part of the promise of open and decentralized, apart from the commercial stuff.
Absolutely. And to your initial point where you said that the big things are yet to come, I met this guy who used to run a hedge fund, right? He was a hedge fund manager, gave up traditional finance and completely into crypto. And I was having a chat with him and he goes, mate, the things that you and I are actually going to make the big money on are 10 years away. They haven't even been started yet. So I think you were absolutely right about that point. One last question before we go into the rapid fire round is, where are you getting? It's a noisy world with the internet, where there are benefits, there are cons, and it's very noisy. How do you keep the noise to a minimum, and where are you getting particularly your marketing news and insights and information from? What sources do you trust, and where do you get your news from?
Good question. I guess I've just got a pretty well curated LinkedIn feed. Is the simplest answer. I'm on Twitter. I find it too noisy, too shouty, too blokey. So I don't really enjoy crypto Twitter, but I do get some interesting sort of information out there. But mainly LinkedIn. And for Web3 specifically, I did this incredible course called Kernel last year. It's a fellowship program in Web3, and it's totally open source, run by Gitcoin. It's an 8-week program, sort of part accelerator, part academic program, part spiritual program on everything to do with Web3. So that's my number one trusted source for everything to do with Web3, and it's completely open source. So there's a block running at the moment. There'll be a new one coming up at the end of the year, so anyone can apply to be part of the kernel program. But equally, you can just look it up and you can go and consume all of the content as if you're in the program yourself.
Oh, very interesting. I'm going to find the link to that and link that in the show notes. Okay, cool. Into the rapid fire round. Okay. A cool movie or a season you watched recently?
Oh, I'm watching Mr. Mercedes season 3.
Oh, yeah? Netflix?
It's on Netflix. Yeah, it's based on a Stephen King novel. It's got this Irish actor. It's just really good.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Actually, there's a better one. It's a Korean one. My wife's Korean. It's called the oh God, I've forgotten the name now. Anyway,
we'll go with Mercedes then.
Stick with the Mercedes.
Okay, cool. A podcast you listen to often?
Oh, this one, obviously.
No, but
I don't. I'm terrible. I'm not a very good podcast listener. I need to listen more. What do you listen to?
I listen to the State of Demand Gen. I find myself listening to Masters in Business, Barry Riddle, Bloomberg.
Yep.
And another one I listen to sometimes is the Diary of the CEO by Stephen Bartlett.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. Favorite food?
Favorite food, tacos.
Oh, interesting. Aren't they snacks?
No. A lot of them.
I treat them as snacks, man. Favorite vacation spot?
Tasmania.
Oh, very local guy. Favorite MarTech tool?
MarTech tool. Just Google Suite.
Fairly simple. Favorite marketing channel?
Favorite marketing channel. Like in terms of how I execute. Good question. Well, it's become LinkedIn.
Yeah. Well, LinkedIn is really high on your radar, isn't it?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed using it the last few months.
Yeah, cool. A company that you think is executing really well in marketing. Could be Web 2.0 or 3.
Miro, the virtual whiteboard guys, I just think unbelievable execution, particularly from a partnerships perspective. Like they've just distributed that product everywhere. Simple proposition, good to use, good for the times, and just unbelievable execution.
Interesting. A book that you're currently fascinated with, or one that is your all-time favorite?
I've been reading a spiritual book for the last 2.5 years, one chapter every day for 2.5 years. It's called I Am That by Sri Nisargadatta. And it's just had the biggest impact on my life.
Interesting. How long is that book?
It's 101 chapters. So I've read it. I've read it through I think I'm on like the sixth or seventh read through.
So what has been the biggest takeaway so far in that?
Just like letting go. Let go, acceptance. It's not much of it really matters. We just spend too much time on the little things that we're just not present enough.
That's so good, man. I mean, so I'm gonna just stop and I'm gonna share something with you here. That's something that I've been doing with myself as well. When I'm too stressed about something or I'm worrying about something too much, I've started thinking about in this way that I'm gonna die, right? And when I think about that, nothing really scares me anymore. I'm like, everything just becomes an experience. Nothing's good or bad anymore.
Yeah.
So that's something that I've been playing around with, and it's worked really, really well for me.
Yeah, well, I think like in this space, I've had the experience. Like Web 1, I was leaving Australia to go and work in Silicon Valley, an ad tech company, right? And I had no idea about technology. And I remember the notes I had and the stress I experienced of going into this new market and not knowing. And today, I'll go and I'm speaking at the DevCon conference, with 6,000 Ethereum developers, right? And I'm just like a total blow-in, right? I nothing compared to most of those people, but it'll be fine, everything changes. It's the one constant is it all changes, and none of it really matters that much. Just be part of it.
Amazing. Absolutely. Second last rapid fire question. Thought leaders that you're following or you would recommend that we follow in marketing or Web 3.0 or Web 3 space?
Look, Vitalik's always super interesting to listen to. I think the A16Z podcast is fascinating. Lots of people got perspectives on A16Z, but they've charted new territory in the space. I think Andrew Chen also from A16Z is amazing. His book, The Cold Start Problem, is great for founders. And also finally there's a course called Reforge, which is Brian Balfour and a bunch of people from the big tentpole Web 2 companies like Airbnb, Slack, Uber, etc. They've built a course called Reforge Growth, Advanced Growth Strategy. They've got amazing content. They're good to listen to.
Interesting. And finally, the last question is, if you were to go back, or in fact, not you were to go back, for the young marketers coming into the market now, particularly in the B2B space of marketing, what would your advice be to them?
Look, just get involved. I think the gap between experience and opportunity has never been smaller. So you can springboard, and I think that's the bridge between Web 3 and Web 2, even Web 2 B2B, right? You can get involved. Whatever you're doing in Web 2 B2B today, over the next 5 years, Web 3 will have some impact on it. And it's easier to get involved, to put your toe in the water with an NFT project or a DAO through a Discord than any point in history to get involved in sort of startup projects. So if you just do a little bit and get a little bit of experience in some of this stuff, even if it's tangential to what you're doing in B2B right now, right? you will create a springboard of opportunity for yourself like it's never existed before. And I think that's the most important thing that I would convey to young marketers. Just get involved, do lots of things. It's the payback's going to be shorter than it's ever been before.
Amazing. Brent, I'm all out of questions. I had a lot of fun. We're at the 60 minutes mark. Thank you so much for your time. And if you've got time sometimes again, I would love to do this again sometime.
Yeah, for sure, mate. I really enjoyed talking to you, Ali. It was awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining us, man. See you next time.
Cheers.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Anatomy of a Rumor. If there is any feedback you would like to share with us, if you have any thoughts, any comments, or any particular questions or topics that you would like us to discuss, write to us at aor@rumors.com.au and we will respond to your query. Similarly, if you have any problems in your go-to-market strategy or you're facing any sort of problems in marketing in general, would be happy to have a chat. Simply jump on to the Rumors website and fill out the contact form, and I myself will be in touch with you. See you next time.